Yo guys, so welcome to a brand new video. Today, I am gonna watch the worst rated episode of Fear the Walking Dead. So I was thinking that I wanted to watch World Beyond and talk about it, but I was like, before I do that, because I've heard that it's bad, I've also heard that it's kind of alright, but that's for me to decide, for my opinion, when I watch it. But that kind of made me think of the worst episode of Fear, and I decided I'm gonna watch the worst episode and give my thoughts on it. So that would be season 7, episode 15, Amina, and that was given a 4 on IMBD. And funnily enough, the next episode above that is a whole 1.1 stars above that, and that is, I'm not going to say that just in case you don't know, because I will be planning on doing that. But I wanted to watch the worst rated episode from each season. And of course, this is from season 7. So when I do come back onto season 7, I will watch the second lowest rated episode. Although there are a lot of them in season 7 and season 5 and season 4. So that's just something fun to look forward to. But I'm going to be watching Amina. I am going to watch it and write down my opinions and everything, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to share my positives and negatives. I personally do not think season 7 is a good season like most people, although I feel that it's better than at least season 5 and better than most of season 4. Although, and sorry, because of that, when I was watching it and I was watching the episode Amina, it definitely stuck out to me that Amina was a bit of a... It was an episode I did struggle with a little bit, but I can already think of a couple of positives and negatives, but I'll write them down, and then I will talk about them when I've watched it, and then when I've watched it, I'll talk about my new opinions on it, and whether I feel like it deserves this rating. And when I've watched the worst rated episodes from each season of Fear, I want to compare whether they're actually not that bad, or which episode is the worst, and are any of the episodes actually secretly extremely underrated. But I will meet yous when I have watched season 7, episode 15, Amina. Okay, so I've just finished watching season 7, episode 15, Amina, and I'm very conflicted by this episode. I took a break about just before halfway through the episode, and as a little kind of what I think about the episode, I definitely think that watching it the second time, like the second half part of the episode, was definitely better than the first. But what I'm going to do is, I'm going to go through my notes, which I have pages of. I'm just going to try and basically just talk you through what happens in detail in this episode. I might miss a couple little bits off, but for the most part, we should be able to understand what's going on. And then, while it will be a bit clear through my notes, I then just want to quickly talk about my positives and negatives, and do I think it should be the worst rated episode, and what would I give it out of 10. So, for my notes... So the episode starts off with Alicia on a stretcher. Everyone's holding her. She questions about Strand, and they say that he didn't want to come, or that they don't really know where he is. Alicia sees a child, which could possibly be an hallucination. And Alicia decides to shout at this child and follow them into the wasteland, and nobody decides to follow her or maybe stop her. Alicia then, apparently as we seems, ignores the radio when everyone's trying to contact her, but we later learn that she actually did talk to them before, and she's just clearly being a bit selfish, because, I mean, they're trying to figure out what happened to her, which they should have followed her in the first place, but they're trying to contact her, and Alicia's just decides to answer eventually. And it already starts getting annoying by this point, the child, because the child and Alicia's relationship starts off very weird and just a bit, just forced. Like, the child's just ignoring Alicia and Alicia's following the child, a bit like season 5, basically. There was a decent effect where Alicia sees her arm rotting. I thought that was pretty gross, and so was something to note. Alicia then passed out, and she decides to get in a van. I don't know how. She passes out and wakes up in a van. Again, it's confusing because we're assuming that she fell asleep and woke up, so she wasn't the one that got into the van. But then mean, is the child even real? Like, did she pass out, then wake up, then get in the van, then pass out again, then wake up again, and just forget that time where she woke up and got in the van? I have no idea, but there you are. And then we start getting even more confusing, because does the child know Alicia? Because they are Alicia, or what? Because she heard on the radio that the child has no idea what's going on. But then, if the child is Alicia, she would know what's going on. When in the van, Alicia finds Madison's tape, Amina, which was a nice Madison reference, and Alicia responded to the child saying, "My mum used to say that." The child then pulls the gun on Alicia. And is Alicia telling herself that she's not going on the raft or what? Because wouldn't the child supposedly know everything about Alicia? Because we'll find out that is Alicia. Just in case you didn't know, I should make it clear now that the child is Alicia, which just makes things even more confusing when you look back at the episode. And I am going with the approach that I already know this, because then we can see whether it actually works or not. And really, not really, it doesn't really work. I wrote, this is so bizarre and annoying, which, yeah, it is. I got a bit bored, I'm not going to lie, by this point, and so I started watching some football TikToks, but I then came back, decided to keep watching. The child says that Alicia can beat this infection, so are we now learning that you can be immune? The child has a friend that needs help in the tower, who can supposedly get everyone to Padre. And then I wrote down this, I assume that they went outside or something, because I wrote no mask, no rules, which is just very abide to the horrific Season 7 radiation guidelines. Alicia passes out again. And then I put this, hallucinative child is a damn annoying plot device. So I don't understand how far away the boats are, because we go to completely different looking or seeming areas, from just completely irradiated, like piss yellow, radioactive areas, to almost like a clear, sure there's smoke from the fire, but clear beach. So, and the state and condition that Alicia's in, how far can she really walk? The child, then I think the child kills a walker, because I put the child cannot kill the walker, which, quite honestly, yeah, the child can't kill a walker, because they're not real. So, I don't understand, because we clearly see Alicia, and she didn't kill the walker, so I don't get it. And then Alicia passes out again, and then everyone arrives saying that Alicia called on the radio. But, when? Because she was supposed to be passed out. So is this another one of them moments where Alicia passed out, then woke up, then died on the walkie, then passed out again, and she's just forgotten all that middle section? Because that's happened twice now. And I at least I do respect that, because possibly the same things happen more than once. It's more believable, like, yeah, she's prone to passing out, and then waking up, and doing something, and passing out again. But I don't know. I think it's ridiculous, and I think that's somewhat debunked by the child killing the walker. Like, it's clearly intended that the child is, like, even though they're not real, apparently they're intended that they are real. It's extremely confusing. So when everyone's back together, Sarah decides to say to Alicia, "We'll take you by force." And Luciana has a little Alejandro reference. I was a big fan of that, where she talked about how people have said that they can survive a bite. So I really like that, because it just takes you to the better parts of Fear and really establishes these little characters, like minor characters, I guess, like Luciana, who kind of just brings us back to when she actually had a bigger role, and to show that she is actually a character with a lot of depth, or used to have a lot of depth. So Alicia is convinced the child is real. And I don't know what happened. I don't know if I got distracted or if I was just busy, but I think there was about a 2-day break, and then today I finished this second half, which is what I was talking about before. So this is just a bit before halfway. So then Alicia doubts herself again, or for the first time Alicia doubts herself, and then she goes on the walkie-talkie, and no, the child's there, so screw that. Alicia didn't doubt herself, the child's real. Alicia decides to load the gun, and she goes alone, because obviously, even though everyone said they'll come, Alicia's just gonna be like, no, because this is just supposed to be an Alicia and Strand little narrative going on at the moment, or well, to be anyway. Alicia's struggling to get up the stairs, and the radio is broken when they get upstairs, but it doesn't matter because the kid tells Alicia that actually they didn't need to get to the Strand to talk on the radio because their friend is actually in the tower themselves. Alicia passes out, nearly, after hearing Strand's name, but luckily she doesn't actually pass out, which would make this like the 4th time, which I understand the state that she's in, but it's just another reason why this episode is annoying, because she just keeps passing out. So Alicia decides to go back to the beach, and literally threatens the child by putting her sharp, pointy hand up to her neck. And then Alicia passes out again. Alicia wakes up, and finds Strand, and they talk. And there was a nice Madison reference. I like that. They talk about Madison. We see a very quick little flashback of her. And I wrote down the acting is amazing because I really do believe that even though the scene was a bit I'm just going to say cringy. Like, the scene was a bit cringy. It was a bit like, but I thought that for what was there, Alicia Debnam Carey's acting was just phenomenal. I was completely buying into this ridiculous situation. And Coleman Domingo was good. I just think that his part in him just lying down whining definitely was a writing part. But I thought that for what he was given, I thought his performance was also fantastic. And I really did believe that there was just such an intense feeling, relationship, situation, tension going on between these two. So that is definitely a positive of this situation. So we then also see Nick and Madison again in a little flashback, and then to kind of ruin the moment, Alicia starts talking to a bird, which is just such an obvious, she's about to kill, Alicia tries to kill herself, and then she starts talking to a bird, and it's just so obvious, because it's like, oh, she was going to kill herself, and now, instead of do that, let's just get her distracted on a bird. And again, the acting is so good, because it's really, really embarrassing, her about to kill herself, and shouting at a bird to get out. And the way that she does it, and portrays the emotion it makes such a bizarre and stupid situation just actually make sense. And I do actually appreciate that the bird is a reference to a little season 4 thing, and the bird has been shown a couple times already during this episode. And then we have, the scene was, it's kind of sad. I will not lie, it was kind of sad. And even a bit touching. Like, again, it's ridiculous, but it does feel sad. And it's very OG-centric between Alicia and Strand, with talking about Madison and Amina and flashbacks to even Nick and Madison. So, in some regard, yeah, I actually am really, really impressed with this little area of this episode. Though, as I've said like 5 times, it's ridiculous. So then Alicia's trying to break the window to free the bird, and the child ends up smashing the window. And it's at this point that we find out that the child is Alicia herself. And then from that point, we can kind of really be thinking, like, what is actually going on? So if this child isn't real, and it is literally just Alicia herself, it then makes us think, well, then Alicia must have brought herself back here. And I actually wrote down, they had like a conversation, or Alicia, I guess you could say, had an inner conversation, but it was spoken out between her and her younger self. And it actually makes me think that Alicia could be dead. I think it has to be a whole video for itself, whether Alicia could be dead. But that moment and scene between them talking, saying how saving Strand is keeping that part of Alicia alive when she won't be here anymore, it does make me think, yeah, Alicia could actually die. And then the decision to leave is made. Back at the beach, Luciana and June are talking, and Luciana says, we're going to leave. Before then, Alicia is able to get on the radio and ask everyone for help, which by this point, we are back in the van. God knows how we got all the way out of the tower and to the van. But Alicia is able to radio everyone, and then they come and help. And Alicia and Strand, before everyone comes and help, Alicia and Strand have a conversation. And it's a decent conversation. Alicia says to Strand that I actually only saved you because for myself. And then Alicia passes out once again. Alicia talks to Morgan, which should have been Madison. Considering Alicia's dead, that conversation should have been Madison. But yeah, Morgan has a little talk with Alicia. Morgan asks if Alicia is okay, but Alicia herself is doubtful. Charlie and Alicia have a moment, and they say Charlie says we finally got to see a beach. And some part that I hate, because I don't care about season 4, and that was horrific, and you just wanted Charlie to be dead. But then I look back and I think, well, it does show Alicia's nice side. The fact that no matter what, like, even what Charlie did, what she did, killing Nick, the fact that Alicia still was like, I'm going to take you to a beach. And then the fact that it did feel like a bit of a full circle, that they were back at a beach. But then I also don't care as well because, well, it's Charlie and it's a beach and it's season 4B, so... But, I mean, I guess it's a bittersweet moment. Daniel and Alicia share a little moment. I liked that. I liked that a lot. Luciana tries to talk to Alicia to get on the raft. Strand comes and Alicia gives him a bad look and kind of just runs away. Not because she's scared, but just because she's just... don't want to deal with Strand, which fair enough. Strand has a very quick reference to the Abigail, putting all the stuff on the raft saying, I know it's not the Abigail, which I absolutely adored. Season 2 reference. And it was a little bit funny as well. Strand then tells Alicia to get on the raft, and then Strand and Alicia have some decent moments coming to the end of the episode. Alicia says to Victor, I did it because I love you, when Strand is drifting away on the raft and Alicia is stood on the beach. And she smiles with a tear in her eye. Alicia waves at Strand and passes out one more time. The screen fades to black, and then we open with a blue sky. The bird is in the sky. I'm assuming that's Amina. And Alicia looks fine. She doesn't look like she's on death's door. Alicia drinks a bit of water and touches her forehead and checks her fever. And then younger Alicia comes back, and the bite on her arm is practically gone. Young Alicia says, you scared me. Oh, sorry, you saved me. Oh, my life. Young Alicia says that you saved me. And Alicia says that she actually feels like herself, which she hasn't in a long time. She then gets her mask and goes to the wasteland to track down people that may have heard her message a couple episodes prior, heading to the burning tower. Alicia walks into the wasteland and uses her last and only bullet, which was established earlier in the episode to be for herself, and she uses that bullet on a walker. And that is Season 7, Episode 15, Amina, and at the moment, possibly Alicia's last episode. Alright, so that is basically what happened in the episode. It was an interesting episode, so I'm going to go over my negatives and positives. I'm going to say my negatives first and then end with the positives. So, my first negative is that the episode was embarrassing, brackets, cringy, because I feel like there were just some moments in it that just made me squeam a little bit, like, oh, that's just really embarrassing. Like, why are you talking like that? Or why are you doing that? Or why are you believing that? And it's a shame, because that's more geared towards the emotional moments, that were actually kind of good, but I just cannot forgive the episode for just some of them moments. It was definitely an annoying episode. Just the back and forth between Alicia comes back to the beach, or she wakes up at the beach, and then she goes out back to the wastelands, and then she's on her way back to the beach, and then she's gone back to the tower, and then she's back at the beach, and it's like back and forth, and then between her passing out, she must have passed out like 6-7 times in this episode, and while, like I said before, I understand the condition she's in, she could have passed out 3 times, so we still would know that's a lot, and the story wouldn't feel as annoying, because she definitely just passes out so she can be moved to a new place, or something can happen, and it can be like what happened? Like, no, that's not what you do, that's not right, don't do that. And then finally, the episode is very frustrating, which kind of does link towards it being annoying, but it's just so frustrating. Sometimes you just want to whack your head against the wall and be like, why is this happening? Why are you doing this? Why can't you just calm down? Why don't you just... Like, why did you have to tell everyone to go back to the beach? and them not come with you to the tower? Why could you have not maybe thought about bringing Strand no matter what? Like, could you have at least not, like, I don't know, like, I guess that's an unfair point, but, like, could you have not thought to do something different with Strand? Like, rather than just leave him in the tower? Could you have maybe not thought as to, like, think, Alicia, like, where is this child come from? What's going on? Like, it's just so weird. And this episode wouldn't have happened if, like, not for this child. And just not this weirdness. Like, I will move on to my positives, but it's kind of a negative. This episode had a decent plot. Like, Alicia is like, no, I'm gonna save Strand. That is a decent a decent plot, a decent thing to happen in the episode. But the way that they did it with the child and Alicia just passing out and just being so sick, it just is ridiculous. Like, if the episode was just plainly, no one wanted to help Strand, so this was Alicia's mission to come back and convince Strand that he can be her, and he can, if Alicia dies or so, Strand can be the part of her that lives on and be her legacy. That would have been good. And I understand it maybe would have been a little bit hard to pan out the runtime, because this episode, like I said, it's annoying because it is a bit back and forth and a bit slow at parts. But it could have worked just being that simplistic. But instead, it just wasn't. And it just had to be completely messed up by annoyingness. But, you know, that is, I guess, a somewhat positive, because if I did describe to you what happened in this episode, I would tell you that Alicia's inner child or inner self is trying to get her to save Strand. You know, and that by itself does not sound that bad of a plot. Not bad of an episode to go and watch. But I actually do have quite a few positives to say, even though I've just been slating this episode and have been for a lot. I think it was pretty OG-centric, you know, Alicia being the main cast member, but definitely an emphasis on Strand, because that's the whole reason that she's really in the tower. And then a little moment between her and Daniel at the end. Not a lot, but a little bit. And then a couple of references, like Luciana talking about Alejandro, and Strand talking about this raft ain't the Abigail. And then seeing, again, talking about Madison and flashbacks of Madison and even Nick. It made me happy that it definitely had a lot of OG references. Stuff that kind of just brings the show back to where it was. And, like, I get, like, Amina was a season 4 thing, which wasn't, like, part of the original trilogy of Fear. But at least it was the characters. So I can respect that. And these two go hand in hand, so I'll just say them at the same time. But the acting and emotions in the episode were great. I was a little bit sad rewatching the episode. I actually kind of was. Maybe that is because I was a little more convinced that Alicia Debnam Carey is not coming back, or Alicia is dead. And so maybe having that little realization made me a bit more sad. I'm not saying she's not coming back. I'm not saying that Alicia's dead. But definitely listening to the words a little bit more made me think, she could be dead. I'm hoping she isn't, though. And the acting really conveys the emotional moments in this episode, where they could have fallen so flat and this episode could have nothing good about it. It didn't. And the acting really did bring these moments up. And there are even some moments, like I mentioned in my negatives, that were embarrassing. But because the acting was so good and the emotions were so good, I was convinced that no matter how pathetic this reason was, it is kind of making me feel things, which, you know, I did feel a bit sad. So what would I give it? Do I think it's the worst episode in Fear the Walking Dead's history? No. I think that some of the moments in this episode really did actually make it watchable. Some of it was completely unwatchable and ridiculous, but some of it wasn't half bad. I mean, it wasn't great. Nothing in this episode was necessarily great. Maybe good to okay is the highest marks I'd give certain parts. Overall, the episode was probably subpar to below mediocre, but I definitely don't think it would be the worst episode. I think there are more harder to watch, annoying episodes than that. And it was given a 4 on IMBD, and I do think I remember that it used to be a 3-point something, I think. I might be wrong. And I probably would give it a 5. Or maybe a 4.5. I think a 4 is a little low. I think it's understandable, and I'm not going to disagree with it being a 4. I could even see it being lower than that. But I think, in my opinion, I'd probably give it rating a 4.5 to a 5. Because it is a stinker episode, but it's nothing that makes me want to gouge my eyes out. And in some parts do make me think, yeah, actually this is making me a little bit sad. But that's my opinion on this episode. What's your opinion on Amina? Definitely an interesting episode if it is Alicia's last. I hope it's not, because it's just a train wreck if that is to be her last episode. But again, please tell me what you thought about this episode, and I will see you all next time in a bit.